want these murders to stop. We want the executions to stop, and we want y'all to deal with the problems of crime, the problems of violence, the problems of drug and alcohol addiction. We want you to add school counselors. We want you to add intervention programs that will save our kids from turning out like Peter Cantu and Jose Medellin and Gary O'Brien. Do y'all think by executing will close this book? Well, the book isn't going to be closed until the death penalty is stopped. We're not going to close this chapter of Houston history by one more execution. As the clock chimes 6 o'clock and the Texas prison system begins this execution, everybody should know that the book is not closing. We challenge every elected official, from Governor Bush to all the Texas legislators, to the county judges, to the district attorneys, stop using the death penalty. Take it off the books or throw it away. It does not work. Texas says death row, and we say hell no. Challenge the media that is getting ready to witness the state-sanctioned murder to report on the truth, to let the people of Texas know that this is not closing the book. This is not ending. The Erdman family and the Pena family will never, ever get over the loss of their daughters. And this execution is not closing the book. The Erdman and Pena family would live with the loss of their young girls as long as they are alive. This isn't closing anything. It's nothing but another murder, another killing that Texas is using to show that killing is wrong. Stop the execution. If every employee of the Texas Department of Corrections would say, I'm not participating in this murder, maybe we couldn't carry them out. If every politician would say, I don't support state killings, there isn't solving crime, let's abolish it, then that's what we should do. If we elected a governor that had the courage to say, well, this hasn't worked, let's look at it and find out why. Or let's find out what works. But we haven't had a governor with the courage to do that. Fortunately, in Texas, juries aren't sending people to death row like they once did. Even in Harris County, which has sent more people to death row than any jurisdiction in the United States of America.
almost 6 o'clock. We're about to be out here with the 16th execution of this year. It is 16 people executed in 2010 so far. Texas is the #1 execution state in the United States by far. This will be the 463rd execution since 1982. Compare that to other states that have recently taken the stance against the death penalty, and you can think that Texas should be reconsidering its own policy in the death penalty issue. Following the lead of New Mexico last year, which abolished the death penalty. New Mexico is our neighbor, has just as many problems as us as far as social welfare, unemployment, educational problems. We all are in this together in the United States, but there are some states that choose to address the death penalty by abolishing it, and then there's Texas, which chooses to execute more people than any other state, but it doesn't have to be that way. We, the people of Texas, can say to our public policymakers that we've had enough. All you have to do is get on the phone, call up your legislators and say, we don't want to be #1 in executions anymore. We want to be #1 in justice. We want to be #1 in protecting innocent people from being wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death. For wrongfully convicted and spending years and years in prison, sentenced to 20 and 40 and life terms, even though they didn't commit any crimes. But we want to be #1 in other areas besides execution, like education and graduation from high school. If you raise the graduation rate in high school by about 10%, you will lower the crime rate probably by the same amount. So those are the ways we want to address the murder rate in Texas. Killing people, executions has no deterrent effect. Nobody is going to be deterred because they heard about an execution today from carrying out any currents of passion. If you look at states that have abolished the death penalty like New York, you look at their murder rate, it's substantially lower than Texas is. New York hasn't had an execution since 1964, yet they have a lower numbers of executions, lower number of murder rates than Texas. The New York City murders in 1993, or in the early 90s, I think it was 1991, were 2,225 people murdered in the city of New York alone. That was just in 1990. Today there's less than 500 people murdered in New York City. So they have cut their murder rate without executing anybody in the last 40 years, I guess now, since the early 60s. So if you ask how come New York can cut their murder rate with no executions, and we have a murder rate that is 1%, ours is around 5.5, 6.0, theirs is around 4.5, 4.8. So how can they do so much better than us when they're not even executing anybody? So think about it. Go back to your legislators and say, how can you address public policy? How can we make the streets safer? And let them know that it's not by executing anybody. That doesn't make us safer. It's by investing in neighborhoods, investing in communities, in high school education. That's how you reduce the number of people committing crimes like the one for which the person is being executed today. These crimes that we're executing people for today in 2010, this case was committed in 1993. Back then there was an enormous murder rate going around the country, which peaked around 1993 and has now fallen continually. So why has the murder rate fallen? The reason is we've had some positive changes in public policy. And we can continue that road, but a major problem is the continuing waste of money that we spend on the death penalty. We waste, for instance, California spends every year $137 million more because they have the death penalty than they would spend if they only had life in prison. That's money that could be spent for education. The same money as we are wasting here in Texas. So, one other quick thing I want